Welcome to our yearbook design contest. I'm going to go over a few requirements or suggestions of how to design a yearbook cover for this year. So for your yearbook design, you should think of these things. The first is clarity and readability. How well can you read it from afar, and is it clear what you are reading or even seeing? Contrast. Are you making some things pop out so that they are noticeable? Composition. How did you arrange the text and images on your design? Creativity. How did you use our theme to create an interesting visual for our yearbook theme? And then also that this should be vertical or portrait orientation, which means it should be up and down. So let's kind of start a little backwards. Creativity. And this is where I would start. I want you to think and sketch of images of what you think of when you hear an unforgettable year. Think about all we've been through in school and what we've overcome together. Think of images of school. Think of the things that you want to remember about school, and also remember about how we came together and really worked through it. Try to be original. You should not copy exact images. You may get inspiration from images, like these images, but we should not see exact copies since these are other people's artwork and ideas. It's okay to have similar ideas. It's also okay to use images to help figure out how to draw something, but the way you draw it and the way you put it together should be different. It should be your own ideas. So let's talk about composition, which is the arrangement. Once you have all your images, you need to figure out how you can arrange them. One thing you can do with them is overlap. So overlap, it could mean the shapes look like they're on top of each other. And you can decide which ones should be in front and which ones should be behind. You should avoid too much spacing, and you should also avoid things being right next to each other, unless you mean it to be part of your design. Cropping is another thing you could do. You can have things go off the page. Some things could be floating, but it might be interesting to have some things go off the page. You can rotate images. So think about your image and how you could put them at different angles or tilt them. You can have a focal point, something that is bigger or brighter that makes your eyes go to it. You can also think about symmetry. Can something be off-centered? It's not always boring for things to be centered, but if you off-center something, does it make it more interesting? You can decide how you can use these composition ideas in your artwork. Let's see some examples. So this was a composition. I like that there's overlapping. A lot of these images pop out from behind this bubble. Because they're popping out, there's some cropping. I don't see the whole image. Some of these are rotated to go outward. And the focal point is definitely this word ideas inside this bubble. There's not really off-centering, but that's okay that there is no, that you don't use all of these, but it does use a lot of these composition techniques. Let's look at this one. This is an actual yearbook cover. So there's some overlapping because these books look like they're stacked on each other. The focal point is basically the stack of books. There's a little bit of rotating because the books look like they're rotated, so they go in different directions instead of being straight on, which makes them interesting. This one, there's overlapping with the cheetah going over the letters. The focal points are just definitely in the middle. It's not quite off-centered, but like the cheetah isn't completely straight on, so it makes it have a little bit of movement to it. Also, not in this composition chart, but I like that they use yellow here and blues here and blues here. and repeated things. So repeating colors, different places, so it feels unified. Right, this one has a lot going on, but it kind of works. There's lots of overlapping. The text is in front of the images overlap each other. There's some cropping. Things look like they go off of the page. Things are rotated. So the sun is rotated to make it kind of have a rays that are going that way. There is kind of a focal point with the lettering because they blocked it off. And off-centering. I feel like this thing right here and this is off-centered to make it a little more interesting. This one's interesting. There's lots of cropping. You can only see some of the earth and some of this mask here. There's overlapping of text onto things. They rotated, so this is like a diagonal composition instead of it being straight across. And therefore, because it's diagonal, it's kind of off-centered. Okay, contrast, making things stand out. So after you arranged it, coloring it or adding details will make things stand out more. Contrast could be areas that are more busy and have more information versus areas that are more plain. Or it could be darks on lights separating one area of information from the other. But either way, these stand out for different reasons. On this one, this stands out because the artist blocked off the letters so that it wouldn't get lost. Also, the top is very solidly colored in, where the bottom has more texture. That kind of is contrast in itself, that the top is one kind of texture, which is pretty smooth, and then the other has lots of images and texture. This person decided on one color background that is different from the colors in the books, creating contrast, making it stand out. This one, the images and everything spaced out pretty well, so that way you get contrast within the letters as well as within the background versus the images on it. The last thing is clarity and readability, how everything kind of goes together. So when you look at it from afar, can you read it, or can you at least see where you're supposed to look? It's really easy to put letters kind of too close together. So I would even start with, when you're doing your final one, figuring out where your letters are going to go. If you want to, you could also do an image and then add letters separately using a drawing app, and I could always show you that if you have enough time to show me your work. You also want to think about readability in terms of contrast. So I can see this because it's blocked off. I can see this because that's mainly the image. I can see this because they use kind of simple colors and made sure that they were spaced out enough. But readability is also the image. Can I tell what the image is? Is it clear enough so that way I can decipher it from other things? All right, so there is your assignment. The last part about this is before you even get started, you need to make sure that your paper is vertical up and down with the smiley face right there. It is taller than it is wide because that is how the yearbook will be printed. You do not want to do it landscape or horizontal because it will then be sideways. All right, so in review, your job is to create a yearbook cover that is vertical to start with, so up and down like this. To think about the theme, An Unforgettable Year at Pierce Elementary for the 2020-21 school year. Use these ideas of composition, contrast, clarity, and readability in your creative design, and try to think about how you can make it unique to Pierce, our school. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm excited to see what you guys come up with, and have fun creating.